Rick, you've got another story for us. Can you tell us a bit in detail about the Tornado F2 Spitfire display and how it came about, and share that with our
Yeah,
viewers?
yeah. Oh, that was an interesting story. I The first time I flew in a Tornado was November 1984, and I together with the Air Officer Commanding 11 Group, Air Vice Marshal Ken Hare, he and I were in the first two aircraft with the Director of Operations, Flight Operations, and the Chief Test Pilot from BAE Wharton. And we flew to Coningsby, landed, great celebrations there. That was November. Uh, I didn't fly the aircraft again until January because we to get the whole thing rolling. We a couple of short courses had been arranged with British Aerospace at Wharton to train the first four crews, and I was on the first course, and there were two crews. Myself and Nobby Clark and Chris Stevens and Andy Lister Tomlinson, as I recall. And so we did 17 sorties with British Aerospace, and then Nobby and I flew the third aircraft to be delivered back to Coningsby, and that was at the end of March. So we'd only been flying literally for, bearing in mind that there was quite a lot of ground school in the first month. We'd done 17 sorties, probably just over a month of flying. And now we're coming to April 1985. And I was at home one night, and the phone rang, and it was Ken Hare. And he said to me, I've got an idea, Rick. It's the 50th anniversary of the first flight, I think it was, of the Spitfire. Wouldn't it be nice if we did some form of synchronized display, the old with the new? And I said, yeah, I'm all for it. You've heard me before. I'm a can-do man. Yep. And I thought it was a great idea. So, having sowed the seed, I then got together with Paul Day, known as the Major, from the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight, and we discussed the art of the possible, because obviously there was a big difference. You've seen Tornado Spitfire Synchro displays since 1985, and you've seen Typhoon Spitfire displays. Yeah. But I was doing the very first one, so it was all very new for us. Yeah. So we put together a display, we worked it out, and it was interesting because we obviously had to work out a display to seek clearance that was showed the best of the two aircraft together, and also took into account all the safety aspects. And if I talk about the safety aspects, in particular, the speed of the Tornado, and sometimes I was going at 600 knots. And, there's a fair bit of vortices around the place. And there was a fair bit of, we were worried about the possibility of, when we were doing our crossing maneuvers, of airflow disturbance to the Spitfire, shall we say. So that we overcame that. We never crossed at the same height. The Spitfire was always down at 100 feet, and I was at 300 feet for such maneuvers there.
Right.
So anyway, after that, I at this stage, let me be honest, I was the squadron commander, and I wasn't going to fly it because the other pilot who qualified, Chris Stevens, was in a much better position. He's one I should have gone to. However, what happened was there had been a Friday night beer call in the officers' mess at Coningsby, and I think he was cycling back. Anyway, I think he had a little fall from his bike or something, and he was concussed. So he was off flying for a few weeks. Then there was only one, shall we say?
Yes.
So who was that? That was me. So I thought, well, don't miss an opportunity here.
Yeah.
So that's why I did the synchronized display with Paul Day, and we worked up because we worked up at Coningsby under the supervision of the then station commander, who was Mike Elsom at the time, and then the AOC Ken Hare came up and cleared us, showed his satisfaction with what we were doing, and we were cleared. We were given a PDA, public display authorization, basically, and we did it for 1 year, and it was a fascinating year. We did it such that because most of the time we actually did the synchro, but we also had to cater for the fact if one of us didn't pitch up, and that did happen a couple of times with the Spitfire being unable to get through the weather. So then, if that ever happened, then the other one, i.e., me, on that occasion, I flew my half of the synchro display, but without the Spitfire. So at least the crowd will get something.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as the tornado is concerned, they get plenty of noise. And it was remember, it was a very new aircraft then, so everybody was just delighted to see what it could do, and it could turn at that height very well. And we did some very good displays around the place. We took part in Farnborough, as I recall, and the Royal International Air Tattoo, and the display was acclaimed. I know sort of was reported on in Defence News and other periodicals, but it got a very warm press, shall we say. The way we did it was very simple. We designed our manoeuvres, and the Spitfire, we'd arrived sort of in close formation with me sort of formating line astern on the most of the time on the Spitfire, and we do a bit of close formation and then split into sort of a synchronized display. The Spitfire would do the RT calls, i.e., so that he would call in certain places, which if I couldn't see him, and most of the time I could see him, but sometimes if the visibility was a little bit down, then you might have a bit of a problem. But it would tell me exactly where he is, and I'd know where I was in relation to it, and I would know by his call whether I had to slow down or speed up.
Right.
And that did happen a few times, and by doing that, I did all the synchronization as far as speed was concerned,
right,
and most of the time we managed to cross exactly where we were supposed to cross, and as I say, 200 feet apart, and I've explained why. I remember we did our final display. I think it was for the RAF Lucas Battle of Britain Day, and the whole of the Air Force Board were there. And I remember most of the Air Force Board in those days were all pilots, and most of them had been flown aircraft, as I had, like the Lightning and the Phantom. I'd say from the outset, you could not have done what I did with a Tornado. You could not have done things with the Spitfire with those aircraft in the same way. So they tended to look at the Tornado and think, well, I'm not sure about this one. Remembering those aircraft in my view, and in actual fact, it was quite safe, because the Tornado with its swept wings, we'd have the wings right the way forward when we were in formation, and we had a maneuver flap on the Tornado, which would give you added control and lift, and so it was very. And the Tornado being such an easy, lovely aircraft to fly. And I remember I was doing this display literally only 2 months after I'd first flown the aircraft.
Wow.
But that's a mark of the Tornado. It's a delightful aircraft to fly, very well harmonized. And but they were a bit worried about the safety aspects of this Tornado and Spitfire together. So it wasn't allowed to go on for a second full season, which I suppose on the one hand was very sad, But on the other hand, it was it meant that the one season we had doing the display was fairly
Special.
unique,
Yeah.
and so people remember that. Now, as I say, there have been times when the Tornado Spitfire and the Typhoon Spitfire have flown, and very successfully. That goes all the way back to what we did in the first year. But it's never been sort of allocated for a full season like it was in 1985. As far as I was concerned, it was yet another opportunity to do something that I wasn't expecting to do. I met some great people doing it. It enabled me to show the aircraft to best effect. I went to some lovely airfields. It was yet it was another challenge,
Yeah.
but as I've said before, I'm a can-do man.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of pushing on that point, obviously it was like a unique one season kind of thing. Did you have to meet the public and stuff like that, or did or was it your choice to say like, oh, I'm going to sign some autographs? Was there booklets in the time, like they do like now, or did you just like finish your display and walk off?
We didn't have a special booklet
Hmm.
that stage and we should have done, quite frankly. I mean, it's all
Hmm.
happened so quickly. I
Right.
mean, the idea came up only in April. We started doing it in April. We displayed for the first time in May, I think it was.
Yeah, of course.
You know, we did actually get a flying suit. It hadn't arrived by the time we started the display.
Hmm.
I think it arrived about June time. So
Right.
so we hadn't had a winter to sort of prepare for all this and get
Got
our
ya.
publicity items appear. We did have various photographs and things like that. As far as meeting the public was concerned, yes, it was absolutely essential wherever possible that you know an opportunity. One took the opportunity to meet the public, not just the public, but meet in like at RIAT, meet industry, meet other air
Yeah.
forces, meeting people was very important, and really, like the aircraft was very new, and that's very new, and people wanted and liked to see it. It's probably a bit unfortunate this time as well that the aircraft got a bit of a reputation, wrongly in my view, became known as the blue circle sort of aircraft with it cement in the nose. And I just want to put that one right while I'm on the subject. We only ever had the aircraft had a radar in it from the start, and it came in, and when I flew the third one back, we had a radar in it, but we had huge problems with the radar, and the reason why we had concrete, as it were, or ballast, what was known as concrete, in the
Yeah.
nose on 5 aircraft, which was only temporary, was because the radars had to be taken out and sent back to GEC for urgent modification. That was the reason, and they did need urgent modification. That's all I'll say at
Yeah.
this. But
Yeah.
it was a bit sad that the aircraft got a reputation for that cement in the nose, and which it never quite lived down. And you know as well as I do that every aircraft that comes into RAF service has its problems when it comes in, and we had ours. And the RAF has the ability to put them right, and we certainly put them right. And by the time the aircraft was equipped with ASRAM, AMRAM, data link, it was a hugely capable aircraft, and acquitted itself well. And by the time it went out of service, it was a very, very good aircraft in my view. Like so many other aircraft in the RAF at the time, it was removed from service too early. But like I can
Yeah.
say, you could say the same for the Harrier, and you could say for other aircraft as well. All part of the defence cuts that we've seen over the years, and which, in my view, most of them should never have happened.